look in my eye. Hotel peace. What's happening, world? It's Ahasa. This is Afrosynthesis. Welcome back to the channel. This week we are talking about all things sacred, specifically what it means to be living a sacred life. For those who have been asking, yes, you can call me Aha for short, for show. For those who are just here, again, my name is Ahasa, Aha for short, which just means the warrior or the warrior's son. And this is a channel where we talk life, living, in the art and science, right, of being spiritual. So what does it mean? What does it mean, like I said, to live a sacred life? It means that everything is spiritual, right? So when we're talking about sacred, we're talking about something being associated with the divine. So when we make something sacred, what we're really doing is making it immortal because we're associating it, right, with something otherworldly. And by worldly, we mean like within matter, within time and space. And so when we are living a sacred life, we should be living our life as if our life is an offering to Neter, to the divine, to your God, right? Excuse me. And that looks very different than just praying here or reading your spiritual text here or, you know what I mean, having a spiritual type conversation here and there. When you are living as though your life is an offering, then all aspects, right, of your time, your energy, your resources, all materials, the way you spend your money, right, and the way you just hone in on and protect your spirit, all of that becomes a sacred practice, a sacred duty, right? So when we're living a sacred life, I'd say that looks like building altars, right? When you think of an altar is a place where you give your offering or sacrifice to the divine. And so not only am I as a walking, living being spirit, an offering, but I'm also building altars in order to offer something upon that, right? Building an altar might look like having a tabletop with a white cloth on it and putting a plant, putting some crystals or some stones, putting a candle and some incense, maybe a picture to represent the person or a symbol to represent the thing or the entity that you're looking to build a relationship with, that you're looking to give offerings to, right? What I mean by that, or an example of that, is building an ancestral altar. When I first started really living a sacred life, I realized that there were family members I wasn't tending to that I needed to do so with, right? Because in African spirituality, your family consists at the most basic level of 3 members. You have those who are living, myself, my mother, my father, my sisters and brothers, right? My aunts, my uncles, my grandparents. But you also have those who are no longer here, our ancestors, those who came before us, who could also be, depending on your situation, your mother, your father, your grandparents, your sister, your brother, right? And so we have to tend to those who came before us as well, because their energy is still vital and their spirit is still active and helpful. It's just that in matter, they don't have the same abilities as us, which is why we need to work with them to bring those things into existence, because we have that potential on earth that they don't. But that doesn't mean that they don't have potential at all, right? So we build altars, and I build altars that have pictures of my great grandparents, that has pictures of my grandma Shirley, my aunt Lula Bell, right? My uncle and my cousin Daniel, all various people whose spirits, my papa, whose spirits I'm working with. The essence, like, hey, Papa, I'm really wanting to tap in to my ability to lead. Uncle Daniel, I'm looking to grow a business, and I know that you own the business. help me tap into those energies, right? Like, oh, you used to own a grocery store. Help me tap it. Oh, you used to own an auto store. Help me tap into that, right? So now I'm building a relationship with spirits that are no longer have an earthly, physical presence. And that, right, by offering words to them, by offering money to them, by offering just my time, space, and energy to them, they then communicate back those intuitive thoughts like, oh man, where did that come from? No, that came from your Uncle Daniel, or that came from Papa, that came from Grandma Shirley, Aunt Lulabelle. Like, yo, I'm wanting to tap into my fashion and get fly Aunt Lulabelle. Let me, speak to me, help me find Pat. That's living a sacred life, right? But the third member of our family are those Africans yet to be born. Like, hey, what am I doing now to prepare for my children whose names I don't know, for my grandchildren who I might, or my great, great, great grandchildren who I might never meet, right? When you're living a sacred life, the first thing you realize is you're not alone, right? Of course, you have the divine, but because you have the divine, that means you have those who came before you, your ancestors, and you have those who have yet to come, being, right, those Africans yet to be born, those future children. It's my responsibility to work with that whole of life and living simultaneously. So again, now when we're living a sacred life, we see that everything is spiritual because, right, I'm waking up and I'm praying, which means I am activating my divine within. And then as I move through the day, right, what did I do when I woke up? I lit my candle. So I'm inviting my ancestors, right? Or when I light my ancestral candle, or when I light my candle for Nebet Het, and it's like, no, I need to activate this day about accountability. I need to light my altar for Satesh because I am going to face opposition today, and I want to make sure that I don't see this as a time of stress, but I see this as a time where there are creative pressures that might be coming at me, and I want to utilize my faculties and my strength and my mind to go to war with these creative pressures so that I can build and create something, right, that is lasting. So AKA I can move through the stressful situation and transmute it into something more helpful, right? That also looks like when I go sit down and I take a break and I'm going to have my lunch. When I'm cooking is a prayer, right? Like, I'm speaking over this food for nourishment. I'm looking for an increase in energy, right? I am looking for my ideas and my mind to be settled, right? Like, while I'm eating, I'm asking for this food to give me the energy to produce the idea that I need. Hey, I'm going to be making phone calls later. I need this food to provide me with the energy, with the creativity, with the focus, right? With the clarity that I need to have the conversation. Allow this food to settle me so that I can listen better. You know what I mean? Things like that. And as you're speaking this in, and you're speaking this over the food as you're cooking it. So then as you ingest it, what are you doing? You're going to be able to activate and digest those things and internalize them, right? So when you're living a spiritual life, you realize that what you say inside and outside matters. You realize that, what Bon Jovi, they said, like, we're halfway there. Whoa, living on a prayer like that. That's what this is about. When you're living a sacred life, you're literally living in prayer, right? In the first episode, we said Medu Neter is divine conversation. So if you're living a sacred life, you know where you're at in the conversation. You're listening and you're speaking when you're supposed to, right? And not when you're supposed to, as if like, don't speak unless you're spoken to. But if I asked for something, I also need time to hear the response. So if I'm always talking, right, I've saved no space for God in the conversation. And so, man, when you're living a sacred life too, I'd say super heavy and super important in 2024 is that you pay attention to the music that you're listening to, right? Because that sets the tone, that sets the vibration, that sets the frequency that you're moving with. You're driving to go meditate, listening to Future and Uzi. Like, that's kind of wild. You know what I mean? Like, you're speeding up. You're turning up the BPM, the beats per minute. You're speeding up to slow down. No, turn on the India Irie. Turn on your Janae Aiko, your Cleo Soul. Turn on your Erica Badu's, your Lauryn Hills, and let's move slower, right? Let's tune into something that leads toward the path that you're looking for, right? I said last week, like, we, for the most part, we all pray with our eyes closed. And so when we're living a sacred life, we're taking time to be present on multiple levels simultaneously, right? Like, I'm not just walking around like, oh, I'm a physical being and I am where my body is. That is true, but I also need to think, like, I might be at work physically, but emotionally I might be, you know what I mean, on last week's argument still. You're not present because your emotions are on last Tuesday. Like, no, I need you here, right? So when your emotions, when your body, now your mind and your spirit are all in one space at the same time, now we're talking about a different type of power, right? We're talking about, again, that J Electronica. Now we're talking about making the unseen be your benefactor and work for you and bring things into existence that weren't there before. Like, yo, I had that thought, I drew it out, that drawing gave me the energy to materialize it. I went to the computer, I connected this to that, that's to the 3D printer. Next thing you know, the unseen, something that was in my mind, is now something that I'm holding. That's sacred, right? We don't always call it that because, you know, Erica Badu says most intellects don't believe in God, but they fear us just the same. A lot in that same essence, a lot of times they aren't calling things what they really are intentionally for us to not realize the power in what we're doing. You know what I mean? It's one thing if you're listening to that song. It's another thing if you're listening to it intentionally for that song to do something to you, right? Like, you're not just listening to the song is doing something to you. You coming to understand what the song is doing for you is powerful, because now you can determine what you want to happen at certain times because you're conscious of what it's doing, right? That's just what I mean. When I mean live a sacred life, I'm really saying let's live an intentional life. Let's live a life of presence. And ultimately, right, we're living a life of consciousness where our vision, the whole package is on moving forward. And by forward, I mean vertical, right? Like, progress isn't, I'm not about progress. Progress is moving forward. That's all fine and dandy, but I'm more about elevation and evolution. And that looks like growing or progress vertically versus horizontally. And so, yeah, y'all, again, this is Afrosynthesis. Today was about living a sacred life. And I just challenge you to take this week to say, in what ways am I not living a sacred life? In what ways is my life not an offering to the divine? And how can I maybe change the practices that look less divine into something of a higher quality, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. We want to be light. We want to take the thing that weighed 10 pounds and transmute it and make it light as a feather. We want to take the things that might be a little dark and add light to them. Or we might need to take some things that maybe have too much light on them and bring them back to a sense of reality. And what I mean by that is not take something that's high and lower it, but to know that not everything always, you know what I mean? There's an ebb and flow is kind of what I'm saying. And so I'm almost, I guess to maybe put that in a different way, because I'm almost hearing, like, as I said it, like, yo, what's that? What I'm saying is, like, you know what? I'm going to let it sit for now, and we're going to keep that as a to be continued for next week. So Yeah, live a sacred life. Tell me what you need for your life to be more sacred too, right? Like what do you feel like you're missing? What do you need guidance on? And yeah, hit me up in the comments. Let's talk. I always say I'll see you next week. I like to say so it is and so shall it be. And now I'm just gonna walk off. Solid.